The greatest power in the universe is life, and it's in you. Every moment, every hour, every day, month, and year, you gain more experience, more ability, more power. Go be great.
You're listening to the Go Be Great podcast with Travis Wolfe Sr., inspiring you to strive for greatness in everything, everywhere, every time.
Go be great!
Great day and welcome to the Go Be Great experience. I am your host, Travis Wolfe Sr., and you are great. New digs. I obviously am in a new situation right now. The current situation doesn't allow us to really get out, so I'm in my home doing the podcast. If you hear the pitter-patter of little feet, that is Ariel Sky running around. And as soon as I start recording the podcast, everybody wants to wake up, start running around, having meetings and doing whatever they do. But it's cool. It's going to be fun. Somebody might come in here and crash the party, and that'll be cool too. But guys, I want to get right into it. Before I do, actually, I want to thank all of you for listening, watching, everybody who's been sharing, tagging us on social media, just watching the podcast on YouTube, liking, subscribing, sharing. I'm super grateful for all of you guys. If you're listening to the podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or Spotify, whatever, thank you. And if you like what you hear or you like what you see, if you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe. And I'm so grateful for it. We definitely want to get the message out to as many people as possible. We want to share this message. If you feel like you've benefited from it, if it served you in any kind of way, inspired you, empowered you, uplifted you, motivated you, whatever, please share the message out. Let somebody else hear it, and let's help somebody else go be great. So, guys, I want to get right into it. Stop making excuses. Stop making excuses. And this is for especially my youth, because when I was a youth, I was the king of making excuses. I mean, I blamed everything, everyone, every time, and never took responsibility for anything. And any situation that happened, I was always blaming something on somebody else. I just never said, "Oh yeah, that's me." It's, whether it was my father, whether it was my mother for their addiction to drugs and my father's addiction to alcohol, whether it was my aunt and grandmother for putting me in foster care, whether it was the abuse that I suffered in foster care, I blamed the foster family, I blamed the system, whether it was the police officer who locked me up, like I was always blaming somebody else and never taking responsibility. It wasn't until I was 19 years old that I finally just took responsibility for my situation and was like, you know what? I looked in that proverbial mirror and I saw myself and I said, you're extremely handsome, self, but you're the problem, right? You're the problem. I was super narcissistic when I was young, but I realized that I was the reason why my situation was what it was. I was the reason why things didn't work out the way it was supposed to work out. Every time I blamed someone else, I was giving them the power to change my situation and my circumstance. Every time I blamed my situation that I was in, every time I blamed the circumstances of my life for why I was where I was in my life, I gave that situation or circumstance the power to change my current situation. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing or no one can change your situation except you. So I had to start taking responsibility. And when I saw myself in that proverbial mirror and I was like, hey, why does this stuff keep happening in my life? Why are things the way they are? And I was like, you're the common denominator. You're the only factor that's going to be able to change your situation. At that point, my life began to change. I stopped blaming others and started taking the power back, giving myself the power to implement change in my life, learn from those experiences, and take my life to a whole nother level. I started to I took a whole different trajectory in my life from that moment on. And I tell that story often. You may or may not have heard it before, but like it truly, truly changed my life, just taking responsibility. And I have that conversation with my children often, especially my son. He reminds me of so much like myself. He does that sometimes. And, I try to hammer the point home for him. And I probably shouldn't hammer it home. I probably should let him learn and experience things on his own a little bit. And I'm trying to back off some, but I just see it repeating itself. There's the same idea that I had when I was younger, like it's somebody else's fault, or just taking total responsibility. And I don't know if as children or as youth sometimes if we're always developed enough or just can appreciate the circumstance enough to say, hey, you know what, this is me. I just don't know, but from my experience, I do believe that we can, because I did it. I changed my mind about it. And I see my son own up to a lot of things. And I see some of the youth that I mentor or help or coach or whatever. I see them make decisions. I see them change. And I see them get better because they made the decision. They made the decision to take responsibility. So I'm going to read an excerpt from my book, Go Be Great, Overcome and Win. Wrote this a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, a long time. Anyway, on page 8, I talk about this. I say we must hold ourselves accountable for our decisions, not deflect blame and responsibility. I hold myself accountable for my life choices. Now, I mean, come on, of course I do now, right? But many of them were not very good in my earlier years of life. Continuing to make excuses for our life choices rather than holding ourselves accountable, executing, and making change hinders our growth. It'll force us to become stagnant, stuck in the past, and ensure our continued detriment. Yes, some of our life choices may contribute to our failures, but all of them will contribute to our success. So, make peace with your bad choices and make progress on your good ones. And you know what? That really resonated with me when I wrote it. It sounded great, obviously, but even today, it still sounds good because I find myself sometimes looking back like, man, I wish I made a. Can't wish, you can't change it. I mean, you can wish, but you're not going to change the situation. It is what it is. You have to own it where it is. Be grateful for the experiences that you had at that time and press forward and move on. Make peace with those decisions that you made in the past that may not have been so preferable, and take the good ones that you've made and figure out how to take what you can from every situation, every experience, because everything is simply experiences, and that's it. That's all. Not good or bad. It's simply experience, and learn from it and use it to progress on and move forward. But making the decision to take responsibility is so critical. And I remember I was 8 years old. I used to watch the show Beverly Hills 90210, and my sister put me onto it. It was like 1992, 93, and my sister was watching this show all the time, Beverly Hills 90210, and it was amazing because it took me away from my circumstance, because we were poor at that time, living in like a motel in New Jersey, in Brooklawn, New Jersey at the time. And, it was like, man, like my life, I used to like, why do I have to be born poor? Like, why does my family have to be on drugs? Why can't I have the life that those kids have? Living in California where the sun's always shining and the palm trees are always swaying in the wind. Like, why can't I have that life? I used to want that for myself when I was a kid, but I never thought that I could achieve that because of my circumstances. I'm like, I can never get that because my parents are on drugs. I can never get that because whatever. And it wasn't until I started to say, you know what? I can't blame them for me not having that type of life. But what I can do is ensure that I can make that kind of life for my children, right? It's too late for me to have it as a kid, but I can create that life for my children. And now today, as I record this podcast, I'm looking out my window and the sun is shining bright in the sky. It's beautiful. And the palm tree is right in front of my balcony, swaying in the light wind. And it's amazing. I honestly feel like we live in paradise every single day that I wake up. And it only happened this way because I simply made the decision to take responsibility for my life. And I didn't make excuses and blame other people and blame other things. I just looked at what I had in front of me, figured out how to use it to help me to progress, and just kept pushing forward and took control of my life. And I'm living the life that I've always wanted to live because of it. And I never ever say anything to impress you, but simply to impress upon you the point that I'm trying to make, that if we stop making excuses and we take responsibility, we can take our lives to that next level, whatever we want to do, wherever we want to go. But we have to own it. We have to take the power back from all the people we've given it to, all the circumstances we've given it to, and take control. Use that power to make change and impact your life in the way that you want to. Now, ask yourself, what in my life have I continuously made excuses for? Are my finances not where I want them to be? Is my life situation not where I want to be? Do my life circumstances not match my life expectations? Is my relationship not where I want it to be with my friends or with my family, with my husband, with my wife, significant other, whatever, with my children? Look at your life, right? And just do a quick assessment. And what in your life is not the way you want it? And why is it that way? Right? But without judgment, without judging yourself, I'm not judging you, without you judging yourself, look at your life, find out, right? Just really quickly, pick one thing that's not exactly where you want it to be, and ask yourself, why is it like that? Why is it this way? Why is it not where I want it to be? If you decide that it's anything other than because of your own actions that you've taken to get you to this place, it's going to be really hard to make a difference and make a change in that specific area in your life, because you're not owning it. If we don't take the ownership, we're not going to get to that place where we want to get to. We can't control it if we don't take the ownership. I got locked up when I was 19 years old. I was in a car with a friend of mine, and I was in possession of a stun gun at the time. I'm not even going to tell you why I had it, because I'm making an excuse for why I had it. The fact is, I had a stun gun, and I didn't know it was illegal, but it was illegal. It was actually a misdemeanor 1 in New Jersey, and I believe it still is, to carry a stun gun. And I had it was like a little pen. It looked like a pen, but in the tip of it, it had these 2 little prongs. And if you press it against somebody's skin, it had like a little AAA battery in it. If you press it against somebody's skin, it would give them a little zap, right? Bought it off eBay, cheap, it was, whatever. And when I got pulled over by the police officer, I was a passenger in the car. And when the police officer pulled us over, he had made some comments that made me feel that he was racist, right? And me being 19 and ignorant and not having control of my emotions, I failed to gauge the situation and make a decision that was going to help me get out of that situation. I made a emotional choice to go back and forth with the police officer. And when he went to his car, I got out of my car and told my friend to press the brakes, because I knew that the brakes were fixed, because he said his mom just got the car inspected, so everything was good on the car. It was his mom's car. And I'm like, yo, check the brakes. I know the brakes are working. This guy pulled us over because we're, black, right? So I get out the car, go to the back of the car. He presses the brakes. Lights are working. Cops like, hey, what are you doing? What's the problem? I'm like, ain't no problem. You stopped us because, we're black or whatever, and the brake lights are working. You're harassing us, right? So we're going back and forth. He's like, get back in the car before I arrest you. And I'm like, I'll get back in the car, but I'm just going at him, just saying all these things, antagonizing this guy. He locks me up. The stun gun it was my stun gun. It was in the car. It was in my possession, basically, and he charged me with it. And I couldn't become a police officer for almost 4 years after that arrest. I didn't get the job as a police officer until I was 23 years old. I had to get it expunged. I got turned down by so many different departments just because of that arrest. New Jersey State Police, I would have been a New Jersey State trooper had I not had that arrest, but they would not hire me because I had that charge on my record in their state. And I had to plead guilty to it and go and it was brutal. But I used to blame that police officer for why I could not become a police officer. I blamed him for why I couldn't have the job that I wanted to have. But in fact, it was my responsibility to maintain control of myself and not take the actions that I did that got me arrested, which hindered me from doing the job that I always wanted to do since I was 7 years old. So really quick, do this quick exercise with me. Take a moment, pause the video, pause the podcast, get a sheet of paper, and just write this down with me, or pull out your phone and just write this down. On page 59 in my book, Go Be Great, Overcome and Win, I had this exercise where I ask you to take out a piece of paper, write down some of your life circumstances that are undesirable at this present moment. Number the list. Maybe your relationship is not so great. Your finances aren't in order. You don't have the car you desire, or you haven't gotten the raise or promotion you want at your job. Your mother-in-law dislikes you. Maybe your business is struggling, or your ministry is not taking off the way you want, etc. Right? On another sheet of paper, write down the causes for each of your undesirable circumstances. If any of your causes are extrinsic, meaning outside forces, outside factors, cross them out and find a solely intrinsic cause operating from within. Something that you did or did not do that bears the responsibility for that undesirable circumstance. And finally, on one more separate sheet of paper, write down the immediate actions you can take right now to change the trajectory of your life. What can you do right now in this moment to change these circumstances? If you don't change, your life will not change. You cannot change someone else. You will not change someone else. But if you change you and your actions, you will change your circumstances. So with that, if you did not do the exercise, go back, do the exercise. Do the exercise. Do the exercise. You didn't waste your time coming here for no reason. You're here. You've gotten this far in the podcast. You might as well spend a couple more minutes doing this exercise and making some change in your life. I'm giving you actionable steps that you can implement right now in your life that are going to help you get to where you want to be. So do it if you want to. If you don't, you don't. But one day you're going to have to face the music, and you're going to have to do this exercise and make the decision to take control of your life by taking responsibility and then taking the necessary action to change your life. So with that said, guys, thank you so much. I really am grateful for your time and attention. I do not take it for granted. If you like the podcast, if you like watching it on YouTube or listening to it on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, or whatever you're listening to it at, thank you. Please share it. Please subscribe to it. Please get updates so you can make sure you don't miss an episode. Guys, thank you so much. Have an extraordinary day. And of course, as always, go be great.